What's going on? This is the Saturday Down South podcast. I am Connor O'Gara. Well, I'm gonna break some news today. Oh boy, we're gonna get cold takes. I don't know how, but we are going to get cold taked, and here is why. We are recording this on February 14th, Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, by the way.
Thanks, man. You got any cool plans? Well, they might be a surprise. I don't know if Laura can hear this. Do you have any cool plans?
Doesn't matter. This will already be out by the time that Valentine's Day is in the books.
Mm-hmm.
No major plans because we're doing we have a traditional dinner that we do where we get foot-long hot dogs and we throw them on the grill because that's what Valentine's Day means to us now at this stage of our lives.
I love that. You guys are just a little bit more Midwestern every time I get a fact of it. Get some brats going. Some talk about Ditka.
I haven't had brats going in a bit. It's been a minute. No, we'll not be doing brats, but yeah, I did flowers and stuff like that. And Lauren got me Chick-fil-A this morning, waited in line for 45 minutes. So got the heart-shaped Chick-fil-A biscuit, which Valentine's Day treat. Yeah, it was nice. So no, I had a nice little morning. But yes, like I said, we're recording this on February 14th. This episode, if you're listening to this, it's February 20th at the earliest. So there is a very, very good chance that we are getting cold taked. And if big things have happened, we will clean it up at some point in the future and we will talk about it when I come back, because by the time people are listening to this, I will be in Indianapolis. I am representing Indianapolis. We will get to that later on in Jersey contest, but we have a great show coming out. George Somerville is going to join us in a bit. If you are someone that fast forwards through the interview, I know interviews aren't for everyone. That's fine. I recommend you don't do it this time. George is just such an incredible he has such incredible perspective on college football as somebody that is doing what he's doing from the UK. And it was just a blast to be able to have him on, and somebody that I want to be able to have on in the future. So stick around for that. And like I said, Jersey contest is what we will close with. But first, Will, I've talked about this enough. Talked about it a lot. Time capsule episode. We're doing it. It's happening. Interestingly enough, that I had said that we were going to get cold takes when I'm doing a time capsule episode here. We're going back in time to December 31st, 2019. And I shouldn't say that we are going back in time. You have knowledge of what has happened. I am not aware of the things that have happened in the last 4 years. This is the date, December 31st, 2019, that I will be speaking from. If you hear me say yesterday, if you hear me say tomorrow, if you hear me say last month, know that I am talking about December 31st, 2019. So everything that I say will be in the present tense. I will speak as someone who only has knowledge of the events that have occurred up to that point, and I speculate on what could happen. You, however, will have the gift of time, and you understand what has happened the last 4 years. So I will ask you questions about these specific people and get clarification, because I am very eager to find out what the 2020s are like. Think about this like Austin Powers when he gets out of the freezer. He's been frozen for what, like 30 years, and he's asking all these questions and stuff. Similar to that, except I wasn't frozen and I did not have to go to the bathroom for a very, very long time right after that.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. Yeah, and of course, love that we're doing 2019. I just happened to wear my 2019 LSU championship hat, so I will gladly speak on the next future from there. It's one of my specialties, actually.
Okay, well, since you started right there, that's where we're going to begin this. 3 days ago, LSU dismantled Oklahoma in the Peach Bowl. It was a bloodbath. I caught myself at various points of this game, and I'm sure you did as well, saying like, wait a minute, this is a playoff game. This isn't some cupcake non-conference matchup. This is a total beatdown. It felt like LSU faced the JV squad, and that's putting it nicely for Oklahoma. LSU clinched a national championship matchup against Trevor Lawrence-led Clemson, which I guess, spoiler alert, with that hat you just told me about, I'm assuming then that LSU is going to win a national championship. Otherwise, you wouldn't have acquired that hat somehow. But Ed Orgeron has quieted all doubt. He's the guy. He is the guy. He's going to get an extension. That's obvious. It's just a question about how much he's going to get. It also seems pretty obvious that he's going to be LSU's long-term coach. I mean, that guy lives and breathes Louisiana. If you could draw Louisiana in a human being, it is Ed Orgeron. So he's going to be there for a very long time. Will, person of the future, surely Ed O'Dron, well, I mean, the hat told me he's going to dominate, and he's going to dominate the national championship. He's going to win that. But tell me also that he's going to start dominating Bama on a yearly basis, and he's going to become a better coach at LSU than either Nick Saban or Les Miles ever were.
Well, we still have T-Bob Hebert as Captain Louisiana, so
Love
that's
it.
good. Coach O is no longer with us, and when I say with us, I mean LSU. He's still very much
dead?
around. No, he's still very much around. He's in fact more around than he's ever been. Coach O's life changed pretty drastically after the championship. He didn't really handle the being the hunted versus the hunter. His relaxation method, where Les Miles kept everybody tight. Coach O kept them a little bit too loose. They lost a record number of NFL players off of that team, which happened to actually be the adults in the room, along with Dave Aranda. And they're all gone. Every one of that coaching staff. But I will say this, the game that you just witnessed, you have just watched two quarterbacks who are going to play in a Super Bowl, believe it or not. Now here's the crazy one. Jalen Hurts will be the replacement for Carson Wentz.
Wait a minute. So that means Jalen Hurts is getting... Why would the Eagles draft Jalen Hurts?
Well, buddy, it was seen as one of the worst draft picks ever at the time. See, you just saw Justin Jefferson score 4 touchdowns in that game. Well, the Eagles went into the draft needing a wide receiver more than they needed air. They instead decide to take Jalen Reagor, one pick before the guy you just saw catch 4 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, not Jamar Chase, is the better receiver out of that game in the NFL. That's pretty scary. Wow. And you just saw the coming out party. But yes, the Eagles went ahead and drafted Jalen Hurts directly after Jalen Reagor. Eagles fans want to riot and burn down the city. Doesn't take a lot for that, I understand. But it's all good because the rebuilt Eagles, led by Kelsey, made another Super Bowl. As for Joe Burrow, he went to his home state, not the Saints, not the Cleveland Browns, but a team he hated growing up, the Cincinnati Bengals, and somehow, inexplicably, is now in 2024, or 2023 even, their leading playoff winning quarterback. He has more wins than any quarterback in the Bengals history.
All right. That part doesn't really surprise me that much.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Jefferson thing, I like Jefferson. I feel like coming into the draft, I feel like he's going to be one of those guys that rises up boards and is going to have a long, long career in the NFL. So that's not the most stunning thing, as great as Jamar Chase was. But the Ed O'Dron stuff, I mean, God, like the staff is incredible. That's really hard to fathom. Like I go and I look at these coach lists of the top coaches in the sport, and he's like top 3, top 4. I mean, he looks like you told me he's about to win a ring. So I don't know. That's pretty wild to me. But like the good news for him is that apparently Joe Brady is staying. Joe Brady said that he's in there for the long haul. Your reaction is very telling. As we enter the 2020s, Will, I own all the Joe Brady stock. I have it. It's mine. If you want it, come get it. I'll sell it to you for $1 billion a share. And even that, you might have to talk me into it and do me a favor. Like, the guy is my age. He just took this LSU offense to historic levels, maybe the best offense in the history of college football, assuming that what you told me is correct, and that's just not some knockoff hat that you're wearing there that you got from China because they didn't win the national championship. Okay, just making sure. You just got to check these things out. I don't know what the future's like. But 3 weeks ago, Joe Brady just won the Broyles Award. He was the best assistant in college football. And I get it. Like, look, it's very fluid. He's got NFL interest. I get that, but he began those conversations with LSU about getting a raise and coming back, and he's going to get paid. Like, maybe they'll work out a system with he and Steve Ensminger where they're both coordinators, but I know that Joe Brady is about to make well more than $410,000 like he made this year. Money well spent. Unless someone comes in and hires him to be a head coach, which, look, I'm not going to rule out. I don't think he wants to do that yet. He's going to run that LSU offense for another year or two. Then maybe he's going to become a college head coach or an NFL head coach. But I can't imagine any world in which Joe Brady doesn't become an even bigger household name and establishes himself as one of the best offensive minds in the entire sport, I don't really think the question is about if Brady will become a head coach either in college or the NFL. Those opportunities are there. They're sitting there for him. It's just about how long it's going to take and when he's going to do that. Will, person of the future, tell me my Joe Brady stock has grown tenfold and I look really smart.
Well, I can't say rule out is something he won't do because he followed Matt Rule out of college football and into the NFL. We learned together that actually the contract he signed does not have a provision about him leaving for the NFL because he was actively interviewing for NFL jobs. So the 2019 LSU staff that you know is Joe Brady, who will be the offensive coordinator for the ill-fated Panthers, Steven Sminger, who right before this game actually tragically lost his daughter-in-law. He actually retired, stepped away from the game. Dave Aranda, the great defensive mind behind all this, well, he got the Baylor job replacing Matt Rule, believe it or not. And so actually, the coordinators you're going to see next year, hold on to your seat for this one, Scott Linehan and Bo Pelini.
Okay, look. Bo Pelini has had good defenses. He had a good defense at LSU. It's what he parlayed into that Nebraska job.
Yeah.
I mean, look, Dave Aranda was good. It was good, but like that defense had holes. There are areas that it can improve. Next year, they got Derek Stingley back. Derek Stingley is like the best player in college football. There's no way. There's no way that Derek Stingley is going to be put in bad spots. They at least have a lockdown corner in their passing defense is going to be fine.
Well, see, there's we could spend a whole bunch of time on this one, but basically there's this virus that's going to become a very big deal in a minute. It's called the coronavirus, COVID-19. Hug all, your friends, get all your PTO in right now because the world's about to shut down. And when that happens, it's going to change everything. Guys are going to be able to opt out and prepare for the draft. And Jamar Chase is going to do that from the jump. You will never see him again in LSU uniform. It won't matter. Won't matter because he will end up playing with Joe Burrow in a Super Bowl. It's a great buddy cop movie that will continue. For the LSU Tigers, however, bad news bears. The defense is going to be horrible. They will never move out of their base set in a season that everyone's defense is horrible because nobody played a full slate of games and everyone was dealing with just mental health trauma around this virus.
They canceled games?
Oh, buddy, did the Big Ten cancel games? And then they realized that the SEC would look tougher than them, and so Ohio State made the national championship with like 6 regular season games. It was a disaster. And here's the funniest part. You see this team that you're watching right now? Bama fans will full-heartedly convince you that Mac Jones is going to lead a better offense next year. And you will have to see that online and think that it's real because they beat Ohio State, who had like 6 wins going into that game.
I don't. My head is spinning right now. I thought this would be a fun exercise to be able to dig into the time capsule, and I just wanted. I thought we were just going to talk about LSU coaches for a little bit and talk about Joe Brady. Inevitably, he's at least an OC for a team that's gone to a Super Bowl or something, or like played in another national championship. Like he's had great moments in the last 4 years. There's no way that he hasn't been at the forefront of some great offenses, right?
Well, the thing about Joe Brady, again, we as LSU fans knew it. Other people did not. He was really not in charge of LSU's offense. That was Coach E. He did some special packages. So he had never installed something like a 2-minute drill. And that became apparent when he got to the NFL and did not know how to do that. Just really kind of lied on the interview, as we've all done in our 30s. And so he pretty much got fired after like a season and a half and has just been coaching Josh Allen, who is very good now. So it kind of worked out for him, actually.
My stock is not doing well. That is not particularly good news. Okay, how about this, though? Ole Miss did what I didn't think was really possible. Mm-hmm. They hired Lane Kiffin. He's been on the job for a few weeks now. I like the hire. I really do. I didn't think that they were going to be able to go out and get somebody like that. But here's what I wonder. Lane he's a spring fling. He is not a long-term relationship type guy. So it's tough because for Ole Miss, it feels like this is kind of a double-edged sword, right? He's either going to kill it, and then he's going to replace Saban at Bama, or he's going to flame out in horrendous fashion. Ole Miss will wonder why it fired Matt Luke. I don't see any scenario besides those two. So, Will, person of the future, tell me which one of those things Lane did and where he's currently coaching since he inevitably either moved on from Ole Miss or got fired from Ole Miss.
Yeah, so believe it or not, he's still at Ole Miss in 2024.
Like, not just going to tailgates, like the coach.
No, fully there. He actually just led them to their first 11-win season ever.
Huh. How about that? Good for Lane. Dang. And he's had, I would assume he's had other opportunities to leave then, and he just hasn't?
Yeah, I think you were pretty right on the money with that. I mean, he was practicing a little bit of situationship, a little bit of ethical non-monogamy with Ole Miss. He was kind of going out and interviewing. But in fact, our favorite rule about the 4 years in Mississippi, it didn't really matter. They just made this collective where they paid him, they backed up a Brinks truck and circumvented the law to keep him in Ole Miss, actually.
Okay. All right. I guess I'll take an L on that one too. How about this guy? There's something that's standing in the way of Lane Kiffin in his own state, and you know where I'm going with this. The guy standing in Lane's way is Joe Moorhead. I mean, let's be honest. I know that this year didn't go great, and yesterday, Moorhead lost to up and coming Louisville coach Scott Satterfield. But come on, like the guy won his first 2 Egg Bowls, which no other coach in program history has done. He at least got them to bowl games, but just give Joe a little bit of time to be able to develop a quarterback. Let him get the Mississippi State version of Trace McSorley. He's going to have them consistently winning 8 games every single year. They're going to win the Egg Bowl a bunch. I know that this year was a little bit weird because John Cohen had the whole weird Feinbaum thing where he wouldn't give Moorhead a vote of confidence in the middle of year 2. But here's the thing. Even if he enters year 3 on the hot seat, I'm going to trust Joe to be able to figure it out in Starkville, and he's still there in 2024. Like Dan Mullen lasted forever in Starkville. So, Will, person of the future, tell me that Joe Moorhead is still at Mississippi State and not about to be fired in a few days like some speculated.
Well, buddy, get ready for this. Are you aware of a player named Willie Gay that plays for him?
Very talented linebacker. Yeah, has had some issues off the field, but yes, I've heard of Willie Gay. Know him pretty well.
Well, in one of his bowl practices, he actually got in a fight and broke Garrett Schrader's face.
The quarterback.
Yeah. And that was kind of seen as like this moment that showed that Moorhead didn't really have control of the team, didn't really handle it well. And so for those reasons, he no longer has a job because even though he won probably one of the better seasons they've had since then, the season ended so poorly that they just couldn't keep him.
Okay, a couple things. I was told Garrett Schrader had an upper body injury. So
it was his upper body for sure. It was his whole face, actually.
How did he get through the beard to hit him in the face?
He's got NFL strength. He's going to go in the second round in a couple of months. So
okay, all right.
Good tape for him.
Good, the aggression is certainly there, the mean streak. But all right, so Joe gets another year or 2, right? Like it's
Nope. That was it. That was all she wrote. The way he handled the media, culminating in this weird incident, it just didn't work. They wanted someone. They wanted someone who's better with the media, and you're not going to believe this. They actually ended up hiring Mike Leach,
the sword guy, Mike Leach.
Yes. Yeah, the pirate.
Yeah, I mean, Swing Your Sword. That's the title of his book. Wait a minute. All right, so they get Leach from Washington State to replace Moorhead.
Yeah.
So then Leach is
because he was not from the South and couldn't communicate with the media. They hired Mike Leach. Actually.
Right, naturally. So that means that Leach is the coach at Mississippi State, and he's like the long-term guy.
Oh, buddy. Definitely sit in for this one. He actually passed away tragically. He had a heart-related issue. It surprised everyone. It was a day of mourning for college football. Our guy, Zach Arnett, got the job. He didn't do so hot either, but Mike Leach actually passed away as the head coach of Mississippi State.
Goodness gracious. All right. Well, I feel like a jerk for asking that question. So since Moorhead, they've had...
Well, hold on. Now, there is a fun tidbit. He set the SEC passing yards record in week 1 of 2020.
Oh, so his first game he did that.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. and it was just downhill kind of from there. Well, like, did he have anything other than that? Because you said like he died while he had the job, so like he didn't get fired and then
Mm-mm.
die, right? Okay.
No, he was living the dream. He was still going back to Key West. He was more vocal than ever. He had some little dust ups with the media as he does, but people had really fallen in love with him.
Wow, that's shocking. Mississippi State was model of stability. Did not think that would be heading down that direction. Okay. All right. Deion Sanders. Look, there was this headline a month ago involving Prime, and I didn't believe it. I still don't believe it as we sit here and breathe on December 31st, 2019. When Willie Taggart was fired at Florida State last month, it came out that Deion was on Florida State's list.
Mm-hmm.
Like, never mind the fact that the guy has never coached at the college level and he's currently a high school OC. Why in the world would Deion be a candidate for a job at Florida State other than the fact that he's Deion Sanders? Like, he's got about 12 more steps to go to get a Power 5 job, much less a job as good as Florida State. Like, what makes us think that Deion can run his own program? Because didn't we all see Prime Prep Academy, that whole thing? Like, that kind of fell apart. Like, this is the stuff I can't wrap my head around, because Florida State, like, they end up hiring Mike Norvell, and I think that he's going to end up doing like maybe some decent things. I liked him at Memphis. I used to talk to my guys on Memphis radio about him. Apparently Mark Stoops was a candidate as well. Will, person of the future, is Deion Sanders even close to becoming a Power 5 coach, or does that headline look even dumber 4 years from now?
You're not going to believe this either. He has the Colorado job.
Colorado, like the Buffs?
Yes, like the Buffaloes. Yeah, the Colorado Buffaloes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's so. Did they get him from high school? Like, how did that go?
Even crazier than that, buddy. He took over Jackson State, which is at HBCU in Mississippi. He led them to prominence. They actually got an Amazon show. Believe it or not, they flipped the number one player in the country from FSU to this HBCU that Deion was at. And then he parlayed his son being an amazing quarterback, Travis Hunter playing both ways. That's the player I'm talking about. He just started off the season like 3 or 4-1, and it felt like a party. It felt like an awakening for like part of America, and then it all just fell off. But people think he's qualified. He's really he has made the Q rating and the swag of Colorado and their potential go through the roof. They are in the Big 12 though.
They're in the Big 12 now.
They're back. Yeah, they're traveling along with a couple of their teams. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Maybe I'll ask about other teams later. But Deion doing it. Wow. Power 5. You end up getting that. Okay. Wow. Good for him. I'm sure.
Just imagine Deion wearing a hoodie and sunglasses with snow falling on him. It looks really sick. A lot of people are buying it.
Sunglasses. Does he wear the sunglasses at night even when he doesn't?
All the time. He hates the cold. Actually, it's really funny.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Kalen DeBoer. So Indiana is getting ready to play in the Gator Bowl in a couple days, but DeBoer is he's going to be coaching in his last game at Indiana because he's leaving. He got the head job at Fresno State, which, look, tough loss for Indiana, and for those of us who have gone there and experienced Indiana football. We know like the years like this don't come around very often. It's first 8-win season in 26 years. Michael Penix was fun when he was healthy, but I don't know if that guy's ever going to be able to stay on the field and live up to his potential. But yeah. DeBoer was great. He was really good. Sneaky good hire by Fresno State. Going back there, a place that he already spent time at before Indiana. Maybe he becomes one of those guys who's just like, I don't know, the 2020s version of Chris Peterson at Boise State. Maybe he can do stuff like that. That could be fun. But I don't know that he's ever going to become a household name. I bet the average college football fan doesn't even know how to pronounce his name. Like, is it DeBoer or is it DeBoer? Like, which one is it? I'll learn that. I'll become an expert probably on his name if he ever becomes relevant. But a little bit of a shot in the dark here, just because I like asking about some of these new hires and how it works out. Will, person of the future, will Kalen DeBoer ever become a relevant college football coach that becomes a household name?
Great question, Connor. So you went to Indiana, as many people know. We're looking back 5 years. If you were to say a top whatever. Kalen DeBoer is a top what coach? You think in America, like head coach? Like we're talking Saban, Kirby Smart. Where would you rank him?
So it's interesting because I looked at the list of the best coaches in America going into the 2020 season.
Mm-hmm.
And the list that I looked at, I think it was either Athlon or Sporting News or something like that. Right after he was hired, I don't think he was among the top 120 coaches at the FBS level. And there's like 130 FBS teams, I think, right now.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? I bet more are going to join in the future. That just seems to be the direction people are going. But like, not even a top 120 coach. So look, that's a pretty narrow path to be able to get like any big time job moving forward, I would think.
Yes, we're gonna do a little reverse compliment sandwich here. So, actually, Michael Penix will be healthy for 2 seasons.
Good for him.
Unfortunately, they will not be at Indiana. They will be for Kalen DeBoer at Washington. Those 2 seasons will take Kalen DeBoer from perceived as not a top 120 coach to getting the best job in America. And if you had to guess what the best job in America would be, what do you think it would be?
Did he get the Ohio State job?
Oh, man. Believe it or not, Ryan Day is still there and has not won a national championship. That's probably the least shocking thing I can tell you.
Okay. I'm actually surprised. I'm thinking Ryan Day is like a top 3 coach in the sport.
Yeah.
So, okay, he didn't get the Ohio State job. So maybe the Georgia job. Like Georgia fans got frustrated with Kirby.
No, Kirby is very much still there. They love him there.
Okay. Well, I want to ask you more about Kirby later.
Yeah.
Not Ohio State, not Georgia. Did he get the Texas job?
No. I'll give you about one more, guys. Really think about when you think about college football, who do you think about?
I mean, I think about Forrest Gump running through just a bunch of defenders and.
Well, that is the level of recruit that he will be getting at Alabama. So I think you pretty much nailed that. He is the head coach at Alabama. He just took over for Nick Saban, who retired pretty surprisingly this offseason. Credit to him. He silenced all the haters. He didn't win a national championship, but one of his kind of least talented teams, most adversity, he whooped LSU and Auburn and Tennessee, which as Bama fans, that's pretty much all you're looking for at Saban's last hurrah.
Okay, so let's dig into it then, because we got to ask. I got to ask about what happens with Saban. Of course, that was going to come up because tomorrow I'm going to go watch him and Jim Harbaugh battle it out in Orlando in the Citrus Bowl. It's a shame that those guys aren't playing in a more important game. I doubt that'll ever happen. But
yes,
I don't really know how much Saban has left in him. You know, I look at this roster and I'm like, he's losing. He's probably going to lose Tua. Tua's probably going to declare for the draft. It's going to be Mac Jones's team. There are rumors swirling that Talia is going to transfer as well, and it's kind of a package deal with Tua, and they didn't really ever want to stay there anyways. Like LSU is just this absolute machine. Ohio State's not going anywhere. Clemson's not going anywhere. I know that Chris Lowe keeps coming out with these stories about Saban sticking around. He's not going anywhere. He feels stronger than ever, blah, blah, blah. Maybe Bama can still be considered, you know, just the team of the decade, and this is the time to be able to do it. Like he'd be tied with Bear for 6 rings, and that's still unbelievable. But maybe now is the time for Saban to just kind of say like, all right, you know what, or maybe it's next year, because you tell me that he's got a little bit more time. He doesn't hang it up right after 2019. But Will, person of the future, what is Nick Saban's future? When does he retire, and when does Kalen DeBoer take over? Does he ever win another SEC championship or another national championship?
So the rumors of Saban's demise are definitely overstated. The rest of the college football world had to wrestle it from his hands as he retired. He only won one more title in that shortened 2020 season, and we will debate the merits of that forever. But the big rivalry that he will find himself in is with him and Kirby Smart. And he will actually win more games than Kirby Smart head-to-head from this point forward. However, Kirby Smart will win more national championships and will beat Nick Saban for a national championship, which is quarterbacked by Stetson
Wait a
Bennett.
minute. Hold on. I need to ask more questions.
Of course.
This is information overload.
Of course.
I can't process everything that you're telling me right now. So, okay, so you told me about Kirby, and that's part of the Saban question.
Yeah.
But I just like, you're telling me that he wins national championships, but I'm sitting here looking at a guy that is just Mark Richt 2.0, because look at the first 4 seasons, man. Like Kirby got him to a national championship, which was great. Second and 26 happened, but their records in the first 4 years, Kirby's 43-10 heading into the bowl game against Baylor tomorrow night, and Rick is 42-10. So like they're the same coach as far as I'm concerned. And don't tell me like, oh, Kirby's starting the number 1 class and that's going to be the difference. That's what's going to put Georgia over the top. Like it's Georgia. You're telling me that this is the most unbelievable thing that you've told me so far is that Georgia's going to win a national championship because Georgia blows it. Georgia's the team that is never going to end the 1980 jokes. They're always going to find a way to do something stupid to get in the way of winning a national championship. It's the same song, new verse. It's just never going to end. The drought is always going to be there. I feel I mean, I still find it very hard to believe that you telling me that Georgia has won a national championship. Like, so Will, person of the future, how does Georgia win this national championship? When does that happen?
Yes. So I do want to go back to something that you previously addressed, which was Saban and Jim Harbaugh. So Jim Harbaugh is actually in, as we sit here on the 14th, Valentine's Day of 2024, he is the reigning national champion. He actually beat Nick Saban on the way to get there.
How about that? Huh.
Yes, that will actually be the second longest official drought, right? Because actually Kirby Smart will break the curse, beat the 1980 jokes. He will beat Nick Saban in a national championship, just as Harbaugh beat him in a semifinal. But like I said, so they had a great class come through, developed guys really well. First off, Kirby fully embraced the forward pass, hired this guy named Todd Monken, who is very, very smart. He's not going to lose a lot of games there at Georgia. And their offense became among the most innovative in college football. They, on the backs of a ridiculous defense and ridiculous talent, Stetson Bennett was carving those boys up for back-to-back national titles.
You keep bringing that name up, Stetson Bennett. Like it's familiar, but I'm like, is he the guy? He used to have like a number in the 20. Was he? You know what? Here's where I know that name from. Stetson Bennett is the guy that was the scout team quarterback going into the Rose Bowl, and he simulated Baker Mayfield. And so everybody's like, oh, Stetson Bennett's great. Okay, so you're telling me that Stetson Bennett is going to win a national championship. He is going to replace Jake Fromm and win a national championship at Georgia?
Yes, in a way. Jake Fromm's situation is a little bit different, but the deal is, the knock against Kirby is that he can't manage highly rated recruits. And the really fun thing for Georgia fans is that it ends up not really mattering. He ends up actually just kind of continuing to go with the less talented guy, but he finds a dog who has that bulldog in him. He finds a guy who has that bulldog in him. He truly is just 6 feet of kick ass, and that's it. He really just puts his team on his back. He actually has as good stats in the postseason as Joe Burrow on more games. He, in the biggest moments of his career, has beaten Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan before they won theirs. He's really just personified the resurgence of Georgia football.
Wait a minute. How many postseason games did Stetson Bennett win?
Oh, I mean, a ton. Let's do a little quick maths here. So he won an SEC championship in 2, so that was 3 in 1 season. Actually lost the SEC championship the first season and then won the 2 playoff games, 1 against Bama, so 5. He actually played 5 and 1. He was 5 and 1.
So wait, he repeated?
Yes, they won back-to-back, believe it or not. And Stetson got better and was the reason they won the second one.
Oh my God. Wow. All right, so I guess not having Justin Fields worked out just fine for Georgia?
Yeah, I got good and bad news on Justin Fields, buddy. He's on the Bears.
My team. All right, let's go.
Yeah.
I just watched that guy tore up Clemson for the majority. Okay, maybe tore up's a little bit strong. He tore up college football for the majority of the year. He's going to be all over these mock drafts. Like they took him 1 overall then, and he's like the guy, right?
Yeah, they actually made a really smart draft choice and then went right back to kind of being the Bears. They got him just outside of the top 10. He's been super fun when he's played, but they can't figure him out, so they're probably going to move on from him. You could probably believe that, right?
Nothing has depressed me more than the words you just said.
Yeah.
Will, person of the future. I don't like
But
it.
Stetson Bennett did have a happy ending to his college career. He was able to overcome all these guys, these transfers, these 5 stars that came in, and he was able to lead Georgia to the promised land. And Georgia fans can now honestly say, no matter what happens from here, they got to see a back-to-back, which is a very rare feat.
Sounds like a Disney movie. Think they'll
Yeah.
make a Disney movie about Stetson Bennett's life?
Yes, they may omit the part where he was just hammered on Good Morning America, but he was more of like a good vibes guy. He was for the boys. That was the best part, is the way they won. They really just beat the snot out of people, and their big guys were super fun. They had all these chonky kings. They had Darnell Washington, who was a tight end that was the size of a light pole. It was really fun football to watch, even when they were smashing a specific team in the SC championship game that I'm sure we'll get to later.
Okay. I'm going to text all my Georgia fans. Guess what Will, person of the future, just told me? National championships in your future. All right. That's good to know. So I said earlier that Joe Brady was the stock that I own the most of. I'm starting to wonder if I need to start selling some Lincoln Riley stock. Look, I bought a lot. I bought a lot. I bought so much at halftime of the Rose Bowl a couple years ago. And look, it was, for the most part, a pretty good investment. I mean, it's the third consecutive year that I watched this team get to the playoff. But the problem is that they just can't stop losing to SEC teams when they get there. And as consistent as Oklahoma's been, I just don't know that Lincoln's ever going to get over the hump. The good news, though, is that he's at Oklahoma. Unless those wild rumors are true that he's going to the Cowboys or something, he's going to be in Norman for a long time. He's going to get a ton of cracks at this. Maybe it'll just take one. Who knows? This Spencer Rattler cat, I don't know if you've seen him. I used it playing a little bit in relief, but they really, really like him. Maybe he's going to be even better than Jalen Hurts, better than Baker, better than Kyler. I don't know. Will, person of the future, has Lincoln Riley won the big one yet by 2024? Or is it still just he beats Texas and wins a Big 12 championship every year?
No. He actually left. Again, strap in for this one. He left Oklahoma kind of in the dead of the night, frustrated, and it was widely speculated that he did not want to play in the SEC. Is why he did.
Wait a minute. Okay, that's Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma because he didn't want to face SEC teams in the playoffs, so he goes to the NFL?
No, he actually went to USC thinking he
South
would
Carolina?
play. No, Southern California.
Oh, that one.
Southern California, who he thought he would be avoiding hard competition by going out west and playing in the Pac-12, getting a nice house. Shortly after, however, they have joined the Big Ten. So he has signed up for flying to Iowa from Southern California. Still has not won the big one. Got smacked by DeBoer last year, who was at Washington. Utah is better than them. Pretty much everyone's already sick of them there, and he is a man with no country.
USC is in the Big Ten?
Yeah, that one doesn't make a lot of sense. Don't think too hard about that one because you're just going to put your brain in a pretzel. It's really, don't worry about it.
Okay, so wait. So USC is in the Big Ten?
Yeah, and Oregon. Yeah.
And Oregon.
And Washington. Yeah, and
Did
UCLA.
they just, wait a minute, did the West Coast just go into the Big Ten?
Well, see, they thought they were a little bit smarter than everyone, and they thought they could get SEC-style money from ESPN, but by the time it was time to hand out their deal, they kept holding out and all the money was given away. So Pac-12 doesn't exist anymore.
In, random non-revenue sports, but it still exists in football, right?
No, it's gone. There is only 2 teams left, and they now control all the resources, and those teams are in the Mountain West, I think.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it's all cooked. All the rivalries are gone. There's a shot of their mascots hugging at the Pac-12 championship game. All the rivalries are dead. They're gone.
That depresses me even more than the Justin Fields news. That's terrible.
Yeah, money, man.
Golly, this has been kind of a downer so far. But wait a minute. So that means Oklahoma is coming to the SEC.
Oh yeah,
that's cool. So the SEC is expanding too. Who did the SEC get anybody else? Because they can't just have 15 teams.
Yeah, they actually got Oklahoma and Texas, man.
Wow. How about that? Okay. So,
and believe it or not, the more attractive property, this will blow your mind, is actually Texas for the first time in the last 20 years because they made a playoff game last year. And Oklahoma still kind of hasn't figured it out, to be honest with you.
That's good for the Longhorn Network, though, for the future of that, right?
Well, the Longhorn Network is kind of why we're here. Everyone's still kind of bullying them over that, but they actually have found a way to get out of their own way and be good. Oklahoma, however, had replaced Lincoln Riley with Brent Venables, who everyone was super happy about. He obviously is, an alum. All this stuff was so great. But he's kind of been like mid-plus there. It was probably a step down from Stoops to Riley, and then another one to Venables statistically so far.
One last thing on that. So I'm sorry, I was coming up with all these questions. Is Texas still crying about horns down?
Yes, they're better than ever, but still upset about that. Actually, UCF beat them the other day and was doing it, and their coach almost cried on national television in basketball.
They can't even take it in basketball?
No, against UCF.
God, get out of here. Okay, Jimbo Fisher. I've been dying to ask you about him because, look, jury's still a little bit out on whether or not he's going to get A&M to an SEC title, national title, all those things. Yeah. I've been pretty encouraged so far by what I've seen from Kellen Mond. I think he's improved. I definitely think he's improved under Jimbo. I'm pretty high on the roster that they have coming back in 2020, but 2 years into this thing, it's hard to say whether or not the 10-year, $75 million contract looks dumb. I don't really know, but maybe that's a good thing. Like, it's a 10-year contract. Jimbo is going to get time. I mean, the guy got a future national championship plaque before he ever coached a game. Yeah. If I know nothing, it's that they are going to give him plenty of time. And the good thing about that contract, and like Scott Woodward, it might have raised some eyebrows when he did it, but the good news is, like, you don't have to give that guy an extension or anything. He's got 10 years on the deal. That should speak for itself. I'm interested in what it looks like when he gets one of his own quarterbacks in there, because Kellen Mond is good. He's fine, but it's probably only a matter of time before Jimbo brings in like his version at A&M of what Jameis Winston was. Like that's going to happen, and soon A&M is just going to become this quarterback factory. I would think that even if they're not winning national championships, they're at least doing that. So, Will, person of the future, is Jimbo Fisher knocking on the door of a title at A&M and making good on that $75 million contract?
No, he has not won. He's not appeared in the SC championship game. Actually, believe it or not, his career has pretty closely mirrored Kevin Sumlin's, except he did not win as much early. You're actually watching the golden era begin of Jimbo Fisher football with Kellen Mond. It actually falls off pretty badly when Kellen Mond leaves.
Huh. Okay, so the golden era, but it's the contract, like that contract is fully guaranteed.
People are going to assume that that's some kind of a money laundering scheme. He pretty much is kept there as like a lame duck, quiet quitting guy for about 2 or 3 years. He tried to hire Bobby Petrino to save his job, actually, and it didn't work. So now he's just hanging out. He's just kind of, him and Coach O are just hitting the golf course together.
Wait a minute. So I'm doing some quick math. That means, okay, he should be going into year 7, right? And he would still.
He's gonzo. He's fired. Yeah, the writing has been on the wall for about 3 or 4 years.
How much surely he got a ton of money. The initial contract, like $75 million. Even if he just didn't fulfill that, I'm doing some quick math. That's like 7 million.
Yeah, you need to get your email to the University of Indiana ready, because the math skills they taught you over there are going to prepare you a lot for the Jimbo Fisher situation in the coming years. You're going to be doing a lot of math. The GDP of a small country is going to be hanging in the balance of this buyout.
Will, I am doing I just did the math in my head. If he's got 4 years left on that contract and he's got $7.5 million each, then that means he got a $30 million buyout?
Well, they extended him, and he ended up, again, I believe the number was 86 or something like that. It was a number that really just made all of us shake. It was so bad.
86 million.
Yeah, it was, again, GDP's, like, the stock market changed when that check was cut. It was terrible it was terrible for A&M and great for everyone else.
So we're just playing with monopoly money by the year 2024. Money just doesn't matter, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, but pretty much. There's a pretty big gap between the haves and the have-nots. Feels like the haves always have a chance to do something like that and just recover. They have more money than they know what to do with over there, so they can just get whoever.
All right, good to know. Okay, so even though I feel like Ohio State got screwed in the playoff game, I think Ohio State should be playing LSU in a national championship. How about Dabo? Let's let's give some respect to Dabo. He just reached a title game for the 4th time. You're laughing. That's not good.
Yeah, let's not, actually. That's going to be a culture. We do not respect Dabo anymore, believe it or not.
We don't respect him at all.
No, I mean, pretty much not. Like, it got so bad this year that this guy named Tyler from Spartanburg called in his coach's show and called him a fraud because he's not winning anymore.
I'm confused. Okay, so Clemson has been to a national championship for the last 5 years. Yeah. Trevor Lawrence is coming back for another year. Yeah. So, like, I assume that they'll be in position to do that again. Like, you already told me the thing about LSU, so I know that Clemson's not about to repeat when those teams play. But, like, still, just set it and forget it with Clemson getting to the playoff moving forward. Dabo will adapt. He's got DJ Uyunglele coming in, too. That's not really what I'm curious about. Like, the thing with Dabo that everybody wants to know is, like, is he going to replace Saban? But you told me that Kalen DeBoer replaced Saban and not Dabo? Like, so what is Dabo in 2024?
He's a depreciating asset. They're not really sure what to do with him. They can't really fire him or get rid of him because he's such a great recruiter and he's built the program from the ground up. And we still respect what he's done, but they're kind of stuck in no man's land because he's still pretty young. Actually, you can make the case that really the last big game that he won is going to be in the following season. It's going to be in that COVID season. He's actually going to beat Brian Kelly in the ACC championship game. Don't put too much stake in that. None of this matters. But he beats Brian Kelly. Those two coaches then go in completely opposite directions. Brian Kelly leaves Notre Dame, takes the LSU job after Coach O. Yes. Didn't even get to that on the Coach O segment. Didn't know if he was coming up later. Brian Kelly is now at LSU, and he adapted, right? He said that, well, I need to get more resources, more money, more recruits. Jimbo has not embraced any of the new ways or technology of college football and has just rapidly been decreasing since then. So this last 2023 season, he had a little bit of a come up, but for him, that was like an 8-9 win season. That feels kind of like their ceiling in an ACC that has teams up and coming right now.
I think you said Jimbo, but I think you meant Dabo.
Dabo, the other O. Yes, yeah, he's still employed though. Dabo is still employed.
Okay, good for Dabo, I guess, but that's just weird. I assumed he was going to keep at least getting to national championships. You telling me that he's just not even going to win another ring that's kind of baffling.
Yeah, every mistake he's made, he's almost indignantly doubled down on to the point where one or two small mistakes really weren't that big of a deal, but now he just keeps going in this same direction. Losing Venables to Oklahoma was a really big deal to him, so he just doesn't have the talent advantage to run this kind of superstar quarterback, antiquated offense. Also, Uyunglele is just really not that good, so he's not as good as Trevor Lawrence to elevate that offense.
Okay, tell me this, though. Mm-hmm. Dabo has said if college athletics ever becomes professional and if these kids ever get paid, that he's going to leave. So if Dabo hasn't left, then that means college athletics are not pro and they can't make money yet?
I'm laughing because actually plenty of coaches have done that. Dabo was not among them. Plenty of coaches, players are getting paid. There's the transfer portal that got Joe Burrow to LSU and so Masoli, some of the classics, right? Well, now anyone can just transfer like free agency. It's kind of like soccer in a way. But players are getting paid above and below the table and being promised things, and so several coaches are starting to go to the NFL. Head coaches are starting to become NFL coordinators because they're saying we don't want to deal with the financial part of this. Dabo is just refusing to acknowledge it because he has so much cachet built up. He can just kind of sit there and blame the media and modern newfangled things for him losing. But he is no danger of leaving because, number one, no college team that has lots of power wants him because he's so stuck in his ways. And NFL coaches, the amount of weird stuff he said to like school kids in terms of like being kind of authoritarian, adults are going to immediately reject him. So they're both kind of in a shotgun marriage right now. It's wild.
Strange. Wow. College football sounds, the money is flowing more than ever. It sounds like in 2024.
Yeah. And by the way, Miami still terrible. They have more money than God and they can't buy wins.
Okay.
So that makes sense, right?
That didn't really surprise me very much, but I needed you to clarify that. That is important. Mm-hmm. Okay, this is a little bit of a shot in the dark, but I'm super intrigued by this recruit in 2020 in this class. He's the highest rated tight end recruit ever. He already looks like an NFL player. He's going to LSU actually, so I'm sure you'll tell me about how great of a player this guy ended up being. But Eric Gilbert, it's actually Eric Gilbert, but he likes pronouncing it Eric Gilbert. His mom named him Eric Gilbert, but it is Eric. I'm doing the math here. So he's I'm guessing by now. So he would have been drafted in 2023.
Nope.
He's No, okay. Stayed in school another year. He's getting ready for the draft. He did the 4-year
I'll
deal.
just go ahead and tell you because it's a fun little tale, a fun little jaunt.
Okay.
So he had one of the best tight end freshman seasons ever.
Okay.
At LSU in the SEC. He was actually LSU's like leading receiver. Especially in the games he played. He was a physical freak. He looked like a Greek god. He looked like he was kind of like Leonard Fournette, but a tight end for a season. He actually played way fewer games at LSU than Leonard Fournette, believe it or not. Not because he opted out. I'm still waiting on the book to come out. It's still a little bit murky exactly what happened with him at LSU. Some things about being far away from his home in Georgia, mental health issues. Don't really want to speculate that, but the objective parts of it are pretty wild. So he left LSU, hit this transfer portal we're talking about. He went to Florida.
What's the transfer portal?
Oh man, so yeah.
I mean, I think I've heard of that. I think I've heard of that.
It's like I said, Burrow and Masoli. It's like how it used to be grad transfers. You had to get a waiver. Well, now you can just go anywhere you want. It's like soccer. It's an open window that you can just appear and disappear. But so he jumped through the portal, went to go join Dan Mullen at Florida. That was probably Dan Mullen's biggest talent recruit ever. He ended up not playing a game for them because Mullen was subsequently fired. That's not really going to shock you a ton.
Wait a minute. He didn't play a game because Mullen's fired. What do you mean?
It was like a last ditch attempt to sell the Florida ownership, but that they broke up before even getting together. Then to really spite everyone involved, he went to Georgia. He actually was the third most effective and arguably fourth most effective tight end in that tight end room. Not to get into that, but they had the best tight end room of all time. He didn't even really contribute. Then he transferred again. Because every time there's been kind of an expectation of consistency on him, it just hasn't worked out for him. So he actually, believe it or not, went to Nebraska. At this point, this isn't exactly super shocking to you. Scott Frost also fired.
Lost more close. Ask you about him.
Yeah, we'll get to him, but lost more close games than we thought was possible. But he was there, and he got arrested for like robbing a vape shop, like a smoke shop. So we're just not really sure where he is right now. He still has the body of a Greek god, but we think he's kind of just gone a little bit. We're not really sure what's happened to him, honestly.
Okay, that sucks. All right, let me ask you about Scott Frost then.
Okay.
Goodness, this is just bummer city over here. So I know Nebraska didn't exactly live up to the preseason expectation that Frost would win the Big Ten West in year 2, which was dumb then and now as I sit here on December 31st, 2019. And I know Nebraska didn't make it to a bowl game or whatever, but like that wasn't really his fault. They lost 4 games by 1 score.
Yeah.
Like, that's whatever. Water's going to find its level at some point. Frost is still the guy, I'm assuming. That's why he got an extension a month ago. Surely by now, in 2024, the Huskers are beating top 25 teams. They're regularly beating Iowa. They're getting to Indianapolis. They're playing in bowl games that matter. Frost will be considered like a top 5 coach in the sport. So, Will, person of the future, tell me that Frost is the second coming of Tom Osborne and Nebraska is on its way to another dynasty.
Connor, I'm here to tell you that Scott Frost might be the 4th best coach associated with UCF. His fall off has been massive. He kind of couldn't live up to the expectations. Big fish, small pond at UCF. The guy that came after him, Josh Heupel, is actually Tennessee and doing way better than him. Levy, who is his offensive coordinator under Heupel, was already in the building. He's an SEC head coach. However, Scott Frost is just kind of chilling out there. He might be an analyst for the Bears. I'm not really sure. He kept getting chances to like turn it around, but he just kept losing all these close games in the funniest ways ever. Like you would just turn on the Big Ten and he would just be finding a way to lose to Iowa or Northwestern. He actually like lost a game in double. He found ways to lose games that were really impressive. So he actually might have been the 3rd or 4th best coach, like kind of around UCF at that point in time. And losing him really didn't super matter.
Wow. I mean, the season he had at UCF was great, and there was a hope that even 2 years in at Nebraska that he's going to have some great moments. But gosh, it fell off the face of the earth. But like they at least peaked with, I don't know, an Outback Bowl or something like that. No,
I really can't even imagine them like a bowl game they played. I think they stayed around 5-6 wins every year. It was a disaster from start to finish. There was really not a moment where Scott Frost felt like he was the answer other than just hopium.
Well, wait a minute. Nebraska, surely just name a bowl game that Nebraska has played in since 2016. Like there's got to be one, right?
Yeah, I'm actually looking at it right now, man. And the most games they won was 5. It actually was pretty generous. He stayed there 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seasons.
He never made
Didn't
a bowl game?
didn't get above 5 wins. Mm-mm.
Good Lord. That's got to be one of the worst hires ever. Jeez.
Yeah,
Wow.
Genuinely, it was.
Wow. Okay. How about this one? This is I think this guy is destined for greatness. Like, he is coach on the rise. I don't want to say that I have all the shares in him, because I can't have all the shares of everybody. I've already talked a lot about having many shares. But Matt Campbell, I'm going to call my shot and say that by now, by 2024,
Mm-hmm.
there's just no way he's at Iowa State. There's no way, because look, he's either coaching at a big time Big Ten program, like, I don't know, Wisconsin or Michigan or Ohio State, like one of these jobs, it belongs to Matt Campbell, or maybe he's going to be poached by an NFL organization. He's going to get poached at some point, and maybe it's after 2020. Maybe he wants to stick around. I like he signed the extension. He's going to stick around for 2020. This Brock Purdy kid that he's got coming back is pretty good so far. But there's just no way that Matt Campbell is staying in Ames, Iowa for 8 years. So, Will, person of the future, tell me that I at least got one thing right in this entire thing today, and that Matt Campbell has moved on to bigger and better things.
Well, Connor, if Jimbo Fisher, we've talked about he struggled at A&M, and the knock on him would be that he was kind of a Jameis Winston merchant, right? Like, outside of Jameis Winston, that would kind of be the take on him. The craziest thing I'm about to tell you today is that it would appear that Matt Campbell was a little bit of a Brock Purdy merchant.
Oh, Brock Purdy merchant. Brock Purdy end up like setting a bunch of college records and being like a Colt Brennan type guy.
Brock Purdy actually just started in the Super Bowl.
The NFL?
Yeah, the Super Bowl. He played against Pat Mahomes and almost beat him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was he like the fourth string guy, and like somebody got hurt and he's playing in this game?
No, he started this season as the starter. I mean, he obviously, he wasn't a huge draft pick or anything, but it's looking like what success Matt Campbell had was kind of around Brock Purdy in this weird COVID season, right? Brock Purdy got to the NFL. He's gotten a little bit better every year, kind of like Jalen Hurts has. And Matt Campbell has gotten worse every year. He has a 4-win season in there, and that pretty much cooled off all the expectations. And probably that one thing I can tell you about the season last year is that he almost got in a fight with a fan.
What, is his name still coming up, though? And
No. No, he's kind of stuck there, too. It's one of those things where he kept waiting out for the best job, and the door just closed on him. And now, again, he's just kind of there.
Just kind of chilling in Ames, as one does. Yeah. Okay. One last one. This is my only question for this one. And it's worth asking because as of right now, December 31st.
Actually, at 8 seasons, Matt Campbell is sneaky getting up into the most longest tenured coaches in college football. Right
is he really?
Yeah, actually.
Wow.
He's got to be getting up on like their all-time wins list. I think he should just retire there at this point.
And who said Iowa State wasn't a destination job? Matt Campbell.
Yep.
Proving us wrong. Okay, so Tennessee is riding a 5-game winning streak right now, heading into this bowl game against Indiana. And it looks like things are heading in the right direction. Like, I know that Jeremy Pruitt wasn't the first choice there, but I mean, to think about where they were and what they're doing right now, post year 2, it feels like they've got some momentum. Will, person of the future, does Jeremy Pruitt ever make it feel like 98?
He sure doesn't, Connor. He sure doesn't, man. I got a little bit ahead of myself earlier talking about UCF, but I think I'm going to do it again. So they ended up hiring UCF's athletic director, the one that put them on the map. And the first move that he made was to replace Jeremy. Okay, so Jeremy Pruitt was forced out of town by a little bit of a made-up scandal so that Tennessee wouldn't have to pay his buyout.
That's Tennessee, if I know Tennessee.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay.
Hand up, that one makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So basically, they hit him with a show cause saying that he was giving recruits money in McDonald's bags. The ironic thing about this is this literal thing would become legal like a year later. So they really just ended up getting out of the buyout. So they hired this guy, White, the athletic director, he brings in Josh Heupel from UCF.
Oh yeah, I like what Heupel's doing so far. Yeah,
Heupel's and immediately the Tennessee fans are going to feel like, oh, this is a small time hire. This guy's just hiring his buddies, right? But actually, Josh Heupel would be the coach to beat Alabama. He would be the only coach. He would beat Nick Saban one time, and that would be their one win against Nick Saban.
How about that? Okay, so who is the quarterback of that Tennessee team? Because I'm trying to think of God, Jarrett Garantano, by then he probably ran out of eligibility, I would assume at that point. But I don't even know. I mean, so then it was, gosh.
Well, it could have been Michael Penix, but they actually ended up with a guy who may have worked better for them in Hendon Hooker.
The Virginia Tech guy?
Yes, the Virginia Tech guy.
Huh.
They were able to put together an amazing cast of characters out there at Tennessee. They had a really good offensive line. They had 3 great receivers. They actually had the best Tennessee team they've had probably since the late 90s or at least early 2000s. They did end up puking on their shoes at the end there, but they were ranked really, really high.
Wow. So that feels like
they're actually ranked number 1, believe it or not.
Tennessee was ranked number 1 in a season?
Yeah, for about a week, yeah. But
okay.
they got there. I mean, that's progress, actually. Tennessee fans are way happier today than they are actually in your time.
Okay, so the Pruitt era fizzled out, and they've already rebuilt things since then?
Yeah, more or less. They actually just had a really promising season.
All right.
A second one. It wasn't like a flash in the pan.
Interesting. Anything else I should know about the future as a whole that we didn't cover? I feel like there's a million things. We could spend 3 more hours doing this because I'm very curious about this whole money thing that you're talking about, where guys can just get paid in McDonald's bags and it's perfectly fine.
Yeah, well, I will say this. I hate to once again talk about UCF, but you'll never guess who's there.
At UCF.
So Josh Heupel leaves. They hire the athletic director from Arkansas State.
Okay. I can figure this out.
Okay.
It's Chiswick. Loves Orlando.
Almost. It's not Butch Jones either.
It's not Butch Jones. Okay. Gosh, this is really difficult. I was going to go through the Scott Frost coaching tree, and then I realized there really isn't one at this point. I was going to go with that doesn't make any sense either. No, I'm drawing a blank. Who is it?
It's Gus Malzahn. Gus Malzahn's been at UCF building a program down there in the Big 12 conference.
Wait a minute. Okay, a lot of questions about what you just said.
Yeah,
Gus gets fired at Auburn finally.
Yeah, it's just kind of one of those where they get sick of each other. He actually, the best years of Auburn since then have all been Gus pretty much. But the administration just got tired of him. They did a little bit of a Tennessee and they just kicked him out of there. So now he's at UCF, just living the life, wearing Hawaiian shirts, just living the dream.
Did he get a buyout? Because that contract was insane.
Yeah, it turns out they ended up paying a ton of money. So UCF got him for super cheap. It was actually a really smart bargain bin deal by them.
Wow, interesting. Okay, Gus is in Orlando, in my neck of the woods. That's wild. Golly, I feel like I want to go through season by season and break these things down, but I think you just gave me everything that I possibly need to know. This was fun.
I will do one for you. I will do one for you real quick because I think this is actually pretty interesting. So who's the reigning Heisman winner? That where you're at, Joe Burrow, right? Joe Burrow, yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and just give you the Heisman winners from there, and you can just react to how you would have thought. Okay. So believe it or not, this guy, 2020 Heisman winner is going to be on Alabama. It's not going to be Mac Jones. Devontae Smith.
A receiver won the Heisman.
Yep, for the first time since the 80s. Yeah.
Okay. All right, good. Desmond Howard doesn't get to flex as much. I like that.
Yes, and a pure wide receiver too, not defense return man, like a pure wide receiver. So he won that in kind of that weird year. Bama would have their first quarterback win a Heisman after that in Bryce Young. Okay. He actually would not really play in he would not win a national championship as a starter though.
But he won the Heisman.
Yeah, he won the Heisman. Is arguably their best quarterback ever. He went number 1 in the draft and just won the SEC.
Okay, not stunning because I really liked him coming in, and everybody was talking about about Sark and about how well those two were going to work together. So okay, all right, that makes sense. Yeah,
and of those, the Heisman winners that you can kind of remember, talking Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, only the 2 Bama guys would not be transfers. The following 2, Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler's backup, who actually, yeah, Spencer Rattler is at the other USC. He is now at South Carolina. They basically, during the Lincoln Riley breakup, the two quarterbacks went to the USCs. I've never actually realized this. Caleb Williams went to USC, Southern California, and Spencer Rattler went to USC, South Carolina.
Caleb Williams is a junior in high school right now. So he really soon.
Yeah, and he's actually he's between LSU and OU, and both of those would be terrible choices. I wish I could go tell him not to do that, but he actually follows Lincoln Riley to USC, wins the Heisman, but not much else. And furthermore, that's going to give you 3 straight West Coast quarterbacks, because the defending Heisman winner, and you're not going to believe this even more so, is Jaden Daniels.
Oh, no, wait a minute. He had a great true freshman season. Like, he's been really good at Arizona State. So Jake the Snake Plummer didn't win the Heisman Trophy at Arizona State, but Jaden Daniels did?
Well, buddy, really strap in for this one. He won it at LSU for Brian Kelly.
Huh. Well, then.
So, yeah, Brian Kelly, actually, LSU's defense is a complete shell of itself. It's horrible. LSU has had the 2 worst defenses in school history since this 2019 team, but they have also had the 2 best quarterbacks by a mile and actually have won 2 Heisman trophies.
Wait a minute. How is that possible, though? Because does he take a redshirt year or something like that? Like, how does he get a 5th year of eligibility to be able to play in 2023?
I'm so glad you asked, Connor. Every single college football player got a free year of eligibility in 2020 when the NCAA literally said this year doesn't count. And so when that happened, now we have lots of grown men, even in 2024, who got to feast off of this year. So there's a guy at Miami who's on his 9th year of eligibility. We fully have grown men playing college football right now.
That sounds fun. Okay.
Yep.
A lot of interesting wrinkles. I don't know if I can fully wrap my head around what college football is in the mid 2020s, but it sounds like a wild, wild sport and a fun time to be consuming it, at least if you can keep everything straight. But man, there are a lot of moving pieces, it sounds like, even more than right now.
Yes, and I'll just give you a couple things to keep you warm that you can count on. Iowa is still looking for a quarterback.
Okay, I believe that. Yeah, that makes sense. Tough.
They've yet to play.
It's been tough in the post CJ Beathard era at Iowa. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, they're going to be screaming for CJ Beathard. They have yet to play a single offense. Yeah, I mean, again, Ryan Day still has not won. Notre Dame's still pretty terrible in big games, albeit not with Brian Kelly. And outside of basically Clemson just got replaced by Georgia. And the top 4 teams have been pretty similar every year. This year we got Texas and Washington, like I said, but before that it was SEC teams smoking everyone. But this year actually the streak was broken. A Big Ten team won, and it was pretty shocking for us because it went from Alabama to Georgia. LSU was in there, But yeah, we're looking at a whole new world, Connor.
Wow, sounds like it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that was fun. That was fun. Back to 2024, Connor. 34-year-old Connor, soon to be 34-year-old Connor. That's really depressing to say out loud. Hopefully nobody found that too cringe or anything like that. Obviously, we're having a little bit of fun here. But it is a good reminder. The reason why I wanted to do this exercise is because I think so many things have changed in the last 4+ years. And it's so hard to fathom that sometimes because we talk about this year round, and I'm even a bit immune to it at certain points of how drastically we talk about how drastically the conversations have changed around coaches, programs, players, all of those different things. And so sometimes it's good to just hit that reset button and go back to where you were at a specific moment in time. And it gives you definitely a greater appreciation for that change. God, there's been a lot of change in the sport, man. There's been so much. It's crazy.
Yeah, as I look at this article on January 4th of this year, I actually think that Matt Campbell is going to move into the top 10 longest tenured coaches coaching right now.
Is that right? Golly. Because he's been, man, 2016 was his first year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That would definitely put him up there. Scott, I mean, especially are you talking top 10 in FBS or top 10 Power 5? Core 4.
Let's see. This is just overall. It looks like, this is Miami, Ohio's in here.
That's bananas. Absolutely bananas. All right, let's kick it to George Somerville. Like I said, fun conversation with someone who has just a very different perspective than any guest that we have ever had on. So here's George. now excited to be joined by a very special guest. It is George Somerville, co-host of the College Chaps Podcast, the UK's go-to pod for all things college football. And that is UK is in United Kingdom, which, look, a lot of times on the show, if we're saying UK, it's related to Kentucky. George, I got to start with the story of kind of how we met, and the background that I had of you was so minimal at the time. When you approached me at SEC Media Days, you came up to me and you're like, hey, I host a college football podcast in the UK. And I heard it probably a little bit sleep deprived, and I heard it too quickly. And I thought to myself, did he say like I host a college football podcast at Kentucky? And that was the only thing that I could process. And it took me a few seconds to connect the dots. So you're talking about, no, like United Kingdom. I'm hosting a college football podcast. That's what I've been doing. And you were gracious enough to have me on your show, and just was a really cool experience, and made me develop a new appreciation for this sport, and the fact that it does have fans that are not just in the United States and living and dying with it. So I just thought it was the coolest thing ever. And you getting to go to SEC Media Days and be there, I just thought that was absolutely awesome.
Well, first of all, hi, Connor, and thank you very much for asking me. And you're right. I very quickly realised when I was, sending invites to people to say, would you like to come onto a UK podcast? And they're like, I don't want to come into a Kentucky podcast, and it very quickly, you're like, you had to. So now it's United Kingdom. It's awesome to come and talk to you again. You're right. You were very gracious to come and speak to us at the tail end of last year. And, the whole SEC Media Days was just, it's just incredible. I'm still kind of rejoicing in all that happened during that week, because, as you know, that was a really exciting week for me. And we'll obviously go on and talk about how I started out with college football, but, I'd watched SEC Media Days from afar, right? I mean, it's on the SEC network, and through foul means or fair, we get the SEC network here from time to time, and I would sit and watch it at home here. I would have it on the TV while I was working, and just like this amazing experience. And then, writing about college football, and then subsequently the podcast, we started to make inquiries as to whether we could actually go to SEC Media Days. And you probably know this, but the people at the SEC are just incredible human beings, right? And then it became a reality. A more difficult reality than I had first anticipated, but still a reality, and that's how I ended up in Nashville last year, and that was just a fantastic experience. As I say, I still got a big smile on my face from that.
You're like chopping it up with Marty McGee, and I mean, you made the rounds. Like it's kind. I bet it was surreal to kind of go through it and experience these. Like, we talk about having like a 2D relationship with something, and to all of a sudden, like to be there, something that has probably felt at times so far away, and to be kind of in the thick of it, like that you made your presence felt, which was so cool. And like, I talked to so many people like, have you met like George yet? And it was just awesome to see. And I was like, dang, like, man, this sport could do some really cool things in the way that, this conference, I feel like, opens itself up to so many people that aren't necessarily, true blue. Like, I didn't grow up in the SEC, which we talk about ad nauseum on the show. But like, I just thought that was the coolest thing, to be able to see you interact with people like that. And we'll get to your relationship with Laura Rutledge as well later.
I mean, the whole thing, right? I mean, I love the SEC, and I guess people go, yeah, you love the SEC, right? You're from Scotland. How on earth can you love SEC football, right? But once and I think everyone appreciates this, when you get into the sport and you understand the traditions and the histories and the rivalries and just the passion and the pomp and all that kind of stuff that goes with it, it's so easy to just fall in love with it. So, I think to go, I'd been to, I guess I call it SEC land. I've been to the States a lot. I'm very fortunate, and I travel to the States a lot. And once I got down into the South, I was like, wow, this is quite something. So, and you just get gripped by SEC football, and let's not beat about the bush. If you're looking for college football, and I would argue any football in the States, the passion that comes from the SEC is is matched nowhere else, frankly. And I think I said this when I was over in Nashville. I come from Glasgow in Scotland, and I don't know how many people familiar with Rangers and Celtic. It's a hugely passionate soccer game. It's a hugely passionate soccer game, so I grew up with the rivalry and everything goes with that, and people will talk about that being the number one rivalry in sports, if you like. It wasn't until I got across to the SEC that for the first time ever I found something that matched that. And I was like, "Wow, this is quite something." So yeah, to get to Nashville, and to meet the commissioner, find out the commissioner listens to our podcast, which was quite something, right? And that kickstarted it. Right after that, it was meeting people, and there was no point in me coming across and hiding in the corner. And part of the job I think I had that week was to let people know that there is a fan base and a growing and quite large fan base outside of the continental US. So I think I felt as if, and I believe, not much drone on about it, but I believe I was the first international media person to attend SEC Media Days. I know there's interest from outside the States, from Mexico and the like, but I think I was the first one to put boots on the ground. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, and everyone, listen, the thing about South is everyone's so welcoming, right? Everyone is just, the hands are out and they welcome you, and it was a fantastic experience.
Did we get you on Feinbaum yet? Has that box been checked?
That box has not been checked, right? And we had Marty Smith on a couple of weeks ago, and we've been asking Marty for a while. Ryan's been on a couple of times now. We have not, but we've made touch with Paul, but he's a busy man, right? He is a very busy man, and I dare I say it, somewhat still skeptical about a United Kingdom podcast, but we'll win him round at some point, and we'll have him on it. Listen, we've been very privileged to have incredible guests on the podcast. And there's three of us. For those who haven't listened to this, there's three of us. We come from different parts of the UK, and sometimes we just sit down and we laugh a lot about how many guests that we've had come to us. Tom Rinaldi, Vern Lundquist, Dabo Swinney. You know what I mean? It's just unbelievable, really. But the people in the South have been very gracious with their time, and Paul's still up there. So if I know you're a regular on the show, Connor. So if you want to put in a good word for us,
yeah, that's done and done. We'll make that happen. We'll get that to happen at some point this off season. So let's go back to your origins of deciding I want to get into SEC football, because growing up in Scotland, I can't imagine that all of a sudden, like, you're walking around and you see people that are talking about this, or, even if you try and consume any sort of media, it's just not part of it. And I think that's such a difficult thing, is to, even as someone who, like, I live in Florida, and it's difficult for me sometimes to consume Chicago related things in the way that people that still live there do. And obviously the internet helps a lot of that stuff. But how did you get into this sport and decide that this was something that you were so passionate about that you could make a career doing this?
Yeah, I mean, so like most people outside the UK, you get into football via the NFL, right? And as I say, I've been really, really fortunate. I've been traveling to the States for 30 something years. I had friends over there to begin with, and it's funny, we're just talking about this at the weekend. First game, I'm going to show my age now, right? But the first game that we went to, we were in San Diego, and we went to the Colts, and it was the old Qualcomm Stadium. And it was the year that Peyton Manning made his debut. He was in his rookie year for the Colts, and they played the Chargers. And the quarterback for the Chargers that Sunday afternoon was Jim Harbaugh. Didn't realise it at the time, but he went on to bigger and better things. But I didn't understand it. right, great afternoon out. Beers, hot dogs, the full thing. Going back and forward a little bit, and you're right, very difficult to consume at home because I think in the 80s we started to get the Chicago Bears. We started to get some football on highlights and stuff like that. So big fan base, Bears, Dolphins, 49ers, that kind of stuff. And then we started to get the NFL games in London. And I don't know how much exposure you get to that, but that's huge, right? Those games sell out in no time at all. And now, they're going to different parts of the world. Spain's just been announced, and Germany's incredibly popular, and all these kind of places. So I guess we've been part of the rollout of the NFL. So, and then there's a kind of logical evolution. Where did the players come from? How does this work? And I was in the States on vacation, and there was a college football game on the telly. I think it was USC, and I could not get my head around that number of people watching university football. Right, I played soccer at university. There's more people on this podcast than there was watching that game when I played soccer at university. Right, so to see 100,000 people in the stadium is beyond reality. So, just chatting to people and all that kind of stuff. And then there's a bit of a funny story that I think on one of my vacations, I don't know how I'd managed to acquire a jersey, and it turned out to be a Michigan jersey. And it just so happened that I was at the airport waiting to come home, and it had been the weekend that Michigan played Notre Dame. Notre Dame had won. Fighting Irish fan, and decided to come up and tell me just how much Michigan sucked, and I was completely unaware and oblivious to what was going on. But I guess it just fuels your interest and your intrigue for it all, and then through time you start to understand the rivalries and the history of the game, right? Because the NFL is relatively new, and I put that in quotation marks, but college football's been played for over 100 years. So you start to pick it up. It wasn't really until I started writing about college football, what were we, 2024, probably 2016, 2017. But I was in the South in 2015. And that was my first visit to Tuscaloosa. Just doing a kind of a tour of the southern states. First college football game was actually in the Superdome. Tulane played Tulsa. That was my introduction to football, college football in the States. But then after that, I went to Oxford. I had my first my induction to tailgating in Oxford.
That's a good place to get started, man.
That was pretty good. I mean, I didn't know at the time, but that was a pretty decent place to start. I can't remember who Ole Miss played. I do remember I met Juice McAllister, but I don't remember who they were playing. And then the following week, Ole Miss went into Bryant Denny. That was 2015, if you recall. And recorded quite was a famous victory. So my start to I wasn't quite entirely sure that I was going to be following the Crimson Tide at that point, but my start to that fandom wasn't the best. But again, an awesome experience. And I have to say, at that point, I was thoroughly hooked, absolutely hooked, and I couldn't wait to go back. And I've been back a few times since then, but just getting into the heart of SEC land, and since then, I've toured roundabout. I haven't managed to get to games, but I've toured through Baton Rouge, and all the kind of real mainstays of the South, and I've been to a few more games. 29. My track record with Mr. Marler has kindly said to me that I should never go to Bryant Denny again, because I was at the 2019 LSU Bama game, which again did not end well for those wearing crimson. But talk about an amazing atmosphere in that stadium that day. I mean, that was like nothing I've experienced before.
Little did you know, a lot of other people listening to this said, George, I will finance your trips to be able to go to Alabama every single Saturday and just make it happen. they'll do it. Trust me. Like God, they will pay in this NIL world. If they knew they had a bad luck charm, buddy, they'd get you on a plane first class and sit in pretty front row and make that happen.
Well, I tell you what, I'm spying the LSU Alabama game this fall. So do you know what? I mean, I'm happy to become the bad luck charm.
There you go, man. What would you say the college football vibe is like on a given fall Saturday where you are? Do you see fandom? Do you feel like you're kind of like, you're isolated with it, or is it something where you can actually like there are places that you go where that college football is going to be consumed?
Yeah, so I mean it's building, Connor, to be perfectly honest, right? And we've seen that in the interaction we get with the podcast and the writing and stuff like that. And one thing I should have said was that when you get that logical step back from the NFL, the first logical step back is the draft. And the draft is incredibly popular here. I mean, insanely popular. People have draft parties and all that kind of stuff. And then I think people start to get familiar with where the players have come from. And I think the vast majority of NFL fans probably have stopped at that in the past. But now we really see the interest in the college game skyrocketing. And what was interesting was last season, the television rights fell away. So up until that point, via a variety of providers in the UK, you could start watching. Well, you'd watch game day at 12 p.m. our time. 2 p.m. our time. That would take you up to the first kickoff, which would be the early kickoff for you guys. Then you would get a choice of 1, 2, or 3 games for that, and then there would be the next game would start 1 a.m. our time, and then if you're a real hardcore, you watch the West Coast, which is kicking off at like 4 or 5 a.m. Sunday morning, right? So At any one time you've got a minimum of 3 games. Sometimes you've maybe got 5 or 6 games to choose from, all dependent on who the network provider is. Those rights fell away last season, and that was when we really saw the power of the college football fan in the UK, because the outcry was really very loud, and they heard it. I mean, we talked to Greg Sankey about it. They heard it all the way from the UK back to the US. But to answer your question, so first of all, there are various different alumni groups about the country. I can only speak about, if there's anyone from Europe listening to this, they'll shout at me. But there are pockets elsewhere, no question about that. But in the UK, there's different, Michigan, Georgia, Notre Dame, very prominent in London. And there are pockets about, and it's all a little informal. Sorry, they're quite formal groups. The rest are a little informal. They're kind of spread about. But I was in a bar. I was down in London. I typically work in London, and I was down last week, and I was in a bar which shows college football on a Saturday, and it was pretty cool because they had all the flags and banners for each of the fan bases that had been in. So Georgia, Tennessee, the big London Tennessee Vols following. So shout out to them. A huge Georgia alumni in London as well. So, maybe that surprises people. So it was pretty cool, and the bar was pretty large, and it was just decorated with all the different flags. So, and then we, with the podcast, we speak to different, there's some, apparel retailers, and they would have started off independents. They would start off selling, NFL shirts and hats and all that kind of stuff. Now the demand for college stuff is just through the roof. So I think people are, I don't want to say I'm a leader in all of this, but I think people are now enjoying the same journey that I enjoyed, which is once you do progress that way, which I think is the fairly well worn, and then a lot of people go to the States on vacation, right? So Florida being a big destination. Once you're out there, and maybe it's football season, maybe it's baseball season. Once people are there, they just they catch the bug, and you're not getting rid of it, frankly. So Now we really are. I would call it an explosion now. We talked to Commissioner Sankey about an SEC team coming over to Ireland, because, as you probably know, the College Football Classic has been revived. This year it's Florida State and Georgia Tech. So we're going to cross to I write for the touchdown. So the touchdown we're going to cross, and we're going to cover that. Talk to Commissioner Sankey about an SEC team. He says that they have that conversation every year, and it's all about scheduling. So if they can find something that works in the schedule, now we all appreciate that's going to be quite difficult, to be honest. And the fan bases are difficult also, right? I mean, it's always been the case. The Packers were the last NFL team to come to London, and that was because they just couldn't work it out with the fan base, because you're effectively giving up a home fixtures to come across. So it's very difficult logistically to sort it out. Some teams, are quite happy to come across, but it becomes quite difficult. But there is, I can confidently call it an explosion now in the interest in college football. So you will see far more interaction from United Kingdom fans than you've ever seen before.
I think that is such a cool opportunity, and the fact that it comes week 0, and we see Notre Dame get to play in that game this past year, and Northwestern and Nebraska played in this game. They ran out, they had free beer going, like it looked like a scene, and it looked incredible. And I was in Dublin a couple years after Penn State opened the 2014 season against UCF, and I went to some of the same places that Penn State was at, and heard like a couple of different James Franklin stories that were just like, this guy's really weird. But overall, everything that I heard from this is like, gosh, why don't more teams want to do this? More teams should want to do this. And you look at the SEC schedules and you realize it's tough fitting in a game like that when all these athletic directors are like, let me schedule these games 10 years in advance.
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate that because it doesn't open up for opportunities like this. And it feels like there are, especially as you talk about with the sport growing so much internationally, it should be embraced by the SEC. And I would love to see a matchup like that, even if it was 2 SEC teams. I don't care. And I realize that there's the home revenue part of this, and that complicates things. But man, it just feels like the SEC, that would translate so well to having a game in Ireland or anywhere really in the UK would be an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, constantly the biggest gripe from the NFL fan is that they're giving up a home game. The Jacksonville Jags effectively have all but decamped to London, right? I mean, they signed what was a 10-year deal and is being extended. And there's been a lot of talk about them moving. And I know that's not what we're talking about here, but the big gripe when we speak to Jags fans when they come across is they're having to lose a game. Now you take that to a much more seasoned fan base like the Bears or the Packers or whoever it might be, and then it becomes a lot harder. So you can just imagine a Tennessee fan base, or a Florida fan base or a Georgia fan base saying, "Oh, listen, we're not giving up a home game to go to London." Now the thing is, when the fan bases, I don't know how well this translates for college football, but when the fan bases come across, they love it. We've got season tickets at Tottenham, and our season tickets actually sitting amongst the. I don't know how we manage this, but our season tickets are amongst the friends and family of the team. They love it. I mean, coming across. I don't think it's. They talk about it being similar to Super Bowl. I don't think that's the case, right? I think that's just hyperbole. But I can understand it. You're in London. There's a lot going on. They put a lot of events on for you. You're welcomed. All that kind of stuff. I can see where it's pretty, intoxicating. You'd have to get a team across here. It'll be interesting. Georgia Tech coming across, and Florida State. Actually, they're the closest geographically that we've probably had for a little while now. I think Florida State have been before, so again, I don't know whether word starts to filter back. But as I say, we spoke to Commissioner Sankey, and he said it's on the radar. But I think it's. I think you have to see that kind of, for me, that step-on-step growth for the teams to sit back and go, well, hang on a second, there might be an opportunity here. For years now, when we contact various different SIDs to see if we can speak to someone at the schools for the podcast, we talk about the opportunity and stuff like that. And as well as I do, Connor, it is all about money. But I just don't think up until now that they see the opportunities or think the opportunity is large enough. So we'll see what happens over the next few years. But certainly there is something there. But in my head, I can see people listening to this screaming that they do not want to come to Dublin or London or wherever it might be to watch a game of football.
It's an 8-hour flight from where I am in Orlando. If you went and flew to the West Coast from where I am, it's like a 7-hour flight. It's really not that much different. And like the experience itself is, I mean, I always say like Dublin is such a great place for an American that's maybe a little bit intimidated about going overseas. You can go into a pub and hear Taylor Swift. They have such a great sports culture. Downtown is like pretty easy to navigate. And there are a lot of things working for it that would make that experience feel like, man, this is so cool. Like you can do a day trip out to, to Galway. Like you make a week of it, and it's a cool thing, and it's much like a bowl game. And I realize that asking college football fans to continue to spend more money is a sticking point, and it's a frustration. But man, like just sprinkling in a couple of these opportunities, I think would just add to the experience as a whole. Is it fair to compare SEC football fans to European soccer fans and say like, that is kind of it's the only comp that I can ever come up with for SEC football fans when I try and explain it to my friends from the Midwest or people that don't really consume college football. It's like the only two things that are truly on that level of that dedication are like European soccer fans and SEC football fans.
I think that's a really good comparison. And as I said before, I got slightly distracted because my phone went off, so apologies. But like when growing up in Glasgow and having that two diametrically opposed fans, right? They hate each other. They absolutely hate each other. But then you take that into the SEC, right? Alabama and Tennessee, right? Florida, Georgia. I don't use the word hatred lightly, right? But there's definitely an intensity to that. I laugh. I sit and watch Feinbaum, right? And you hear the fans come on and they're crazy, they're absolutely mad, but they're incredibly passionate. You take, a Saturday afternoon phone in, a local radio station in Glasgow, you've got a very similar comparison there, right? The other thing is the atmosphere. Having been to Old Firm games here, first thing when the two teams come out of the tunnel, that it's a wall of noise, right? The noise just comes and punches you in the face. 2019 LSU Alabama in the afternoon, not even an evening game, in the afternoon, and that wall of noise was there. And, I've seen it in other games that I've been to in the SEC. My top of my wish list is Tiger Stadium, right? I need to go to Death Valley on a Saturday night, because that's the level. So the intensity is certainly there, the noise is certainly there, the passion, all of that kind of stuff. I think it is a very good comparison actually in terms of what you're going to get. And again, another reason that people start to follow the college game is that, even if you're not an SEC fan, you want to go to, for some bizarre reason, you want to go to the Big Ten, right? You go to Penn State. I mean, that's a pretty awesome atmosphere there, right? So, I think you don't necessarily get that NFL. So a lot of my friends will go to Florida. They'll go to Tampa, go and grab a game there, go to Jacksonville, whatever. Brits love Florida. I think you know that better than I do. I've been to, Tampa for a game, sorry. And, the atmosphere it was a game, right? You sit there and you watch a game.
It was a game, yeah.
There isn't the atmosphere. You're there to watch the football. There isn't but you go 100 miles or so up the road to Gainesville. Wow, right? That's something else. Sorry, I'll tell you a really quick story. I'd always wanted to go to the Swamp when I first started watching college football. Tim Tebow, whose jersey is hanging up there, that was it. That was awesome. Went to Swamp. We drove into Gainesville. It was midweek. It was like a Wednesday afternoon, something like that. And I was like, I have to just go and see the stadium. I just want to go and see the stadium. But like when you go anywhere here, everything's locked up. You don't get in it, but the Swamp is open, right? You walk into the Swamp.
It's always open. You can just roll right in there. It's crazy.
I thought I was like breaking and entering, right? I was like, wow, this is really cool. So I got down, sat right at the bottom. I was in awe of. Honestly, it was almost like cathedral. Like it was really everything I wanted it to be, and that's empty, right? And I swear, because the photograph's up here, I'm not making this up. I'm sitting there, I'm just like in awe of the whole thing. And this guy was running up and down the stairs, and he stops at the bottom of the stairs where I'm standing to catch a breath. And he says, how are you? And it was Coach Spurrier. You could not make this up, right? You couldn't make it up. So we end up talking about golf, and he'd been to St Andrews to play golf and stuff like that. And it was just the most amazing experience. I love telling that story because it was just, Wednesday afternoon, it was just incredible.
That's a movie. That's incredible, man. Spurrier just running up and down the stairs. Golly.
You couldn't make it up. You really couldn't.
Oh, man. You've had unbelievable experiences so far. 2019 LSU Bama game, is that your favorite so far on a college football Saturday?
I think so. The other place that really, really grabbed me was Athens. I love Athens as a town.
It's beautiful.
Oh man, it's just so much going on there, and the people in Athens were so nice. So we were there. Very first player I interviewed, Rodrigo Blankenship, and
that's a good one.
That's a good one, right? And bizarrely, apparently, Rodrigo got lots of requests. I've got to know the team at Georgia really well, and Rodrigo gets tons of requests from outside the US because he's a kicker, right? Now, I would like to just put to one side the fact that they talk about when the NFL game kicks off, the biggest cheerers for the kickoff. That might have been the case, but it's no longer the case, right? But the kickers do tend to get a bit of attention. So Rodrigo very kindly came and chatted, and that was awesome. And when I told him I was coming across to Athens, so it was 2019. It was Georgia Texas A&M. It was the Georgia homecoming game. Rodrigo was a senior, so it was like his senior day, amongst others. I mean, that was a pretty star-studded team. And it was a Saturday afternoon kickoff. It had poured with rain for like 8 hours. I mean, it was incredibly damp. And then as we got into the second half and the sun started to dip away, it was amazing sunset, and Athens is just beautiful, right? And Athens just grabbed my heart. I absolutely loved it. So that the atmosphere was pretty intense again, right? Despite the rain. I love it when the students just go crazy and it's pouring with rain. But that was a pretty good experience also. But I think in all honesty, it's going to be hard to beat 2019 LSU Bama. I mean, that's the game of a generation, a game of a lifetime, isn't it? Right? I mean, to see all of those players on the same field. And interestingly, why I went to that game, obviously because of LSU, I wanted to see Tua play before he went to the NFL. And I couldn't have timed that better, because if it wasn't the game after, and it might have been, it was certainly the game after that, the Mississippi State game, when he injured his hip, and that was him. That was the last game he played in college. So I timed that quite well.
Yeah, that game was bananas. So we were interestingly enough at a Mizzou Georgia game that day, and we watched it at my buddy Candler's tailgate, and we watched it once we got into the stadium and everything. It was surreal. The amount of talent on the field that day. It's just one of those kind of pinch yourself moments. Your experiences you've had so many of these cool moments, and I'm sure it's hard to kind of narrow them down sometimes, but like even just the relationships that you've been able to develop, you and Laura Rutledge, I mean, like, she's basically a regular on your show at this point, and Laura's like mega star and just in football in general because of all the NFL things that she does with NFL Live, ESPN, and whatnot. How did that relationship start in getting that rapport with someone who has obviously just become woven into the fabric of football in the United States?
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone who knows Laura knows what a special person she is, right? She gives her time up. I don't know how she managed to give her time up. The last time we had her on, I think, was just before Christmas, and one of the guys, so the three of us, one of them is actually United Kingdom's first professional volleyball coach. So Alex was doing a lot of coaching at that point, and so Laura came along and she said that she was applying to become the third chap. So we'll see how that application goes. But I met Laura 2019 in Athens. We'd had a really long drive into Athens. See, the roads in your part of the world are just crazy, right? And
Brutal.
Georgia, the drivers are insane, to be perfectly honest. So we had a really long drive into Athens, and I was there with my brother, and I knew that the SEC Nation, Feinbaum, they'd set it up at the library, and so my brother said, listen, I'm going to just chill out in the hotel, and I thought I'll go for a walk and see how it was going on. I wanted to catch the Feinbaum show live, and it just so happened I bumped into Laura, and we got chatting, and it was funny because Reese had just been born. She was a tiny little baby in a carry cot. And as it turns out, Laura's dad has Scottish roots, has Glaswegian roots, right? And the year before Reese had been born, they had all been over to Glasgow and the surrounding area to see where their ancestors come from. So we just struck up a conversation about that, and then she wanted to know why on earth we were, watching college football, all the questions you've just asked, Connor, and that was it, and I said about the podcast, and she said I'd love to come on the podcast, and we'd had a lot of guests up until that point, but you'll know, like Saturday Down South is huge now, right? But I don't know what it was like back in the day, but it's a grind to get guests to come on, right? You spend a lot of time, a lot of energy. And back then, we were so fortunate people would, most often, just when someone said yes, we were rejoicing, right? But Laura came on, I guess you're right, she was the first, superstar guest that we had, and that was awesome. And then I also met Ryan McGee, actually, met Ryan McGee, and there's a really well-known hamburger joint, which I think is subsequently closed down. I can't remember the name of it. Varsity, I think it was. The
Varsity. Yeah, that's an institution. Yep.
So I met Ryan in there, and he was equally flummoxed by the fact that my accent, and I said that I loved Marty McGee. So they came on the pod fairly quickly. And then after that, once we said, we've had Laura on, then that opened up a lot of doors. But she's the reason that Greg Sankey listens to the podcast, because she'd pointed him in our direction. She's not just a great friend, but she's an incredible advocate for us. And we can't ask for more than that. And, again, we shake our head every day that, there's a mention about us somewhere, but, it's super cool. She's a great person. And, it's, and that was 5 years ago. So, as you say, she's on the podcast quite often.
She's the best. Absolutely awesome. I've yet to hear like anybody in this business that has ever said anything about Laura has always been glowingly positive. And I hear like a lot of negative things on the back end about certain people and stuff like that. And with her, it's just like she's awesome, just the nicest person.
It's all very genuine,
so unbelievably kind,
incredibly genuine. And that day she was chatting to me, there was a long line of people who wanted photographs and autographs, stuff like that. And I said, listen, really nice to meet you. I'll leave you here and enjoy the rest of your day. And she's like, no, you just stay there. I want to hear the rest of your story. And I'm like, okay, right. But, all of these people want to see you. Yeah, very genuine individual, that's for sure.
Last thing for you. The bucket list thing that we got to make happen for you is either a Feinbaum Friday from Baton Rouge in Death Valley. We got to get you on set for something like that. Or alternatively, if we can get Mr. Sankey to be able to set up one of these Ireland games and talk some of these ADs into being able to do that, you on set, like SEC Nation is in the house. It's like a week 0 game, something like that. That would be just absolutely perfect. And such a, like I'm sure like just such a pinch yourself type moment. Not that you need any more of those, because Lord knows you've had, it sounds like a million of them.
Well, every moment's pinch myself moment, Connor. To be honest, I don't know if you remember, but I got the opportunity. I mean, again, my timing was immaculate. It isn't usually that good, but it was immaculate. I got to ask Nick Saban a question in the big room. Geez, talk about good timing. And I just listen. I'm not a journalist by trade. I'm not, right. I've fallen into this a little bit through my passion, and I do really enjoy it. But some of the opportunities that have come up are just quite incredible. And I have to say, as much as there's a sadness that Nick Saban is no longer going to be coaching Alabama, I can't hide my excitement, that he's going to be a pundit. I mean, if he's going to be on game day, one assumes that he's going to be game day is going to be in Ireland for that game. So I can't imagine the scenes that are going to be there. But certainly, yeah, I mean, those would be incredible. And I think, when you talk about Paul Feinbaum, I mean, he is an institution, right? I mean, I don't need to tell anyone who's listening to that. He's an institution. He's almost Mr. South in that respect, right? And I actually saw him we were going to try and catch up in Nashville, and it didn't happen. But even just see him walking in the hotel was like just Paul Feinbaum. So I love it. I hope to be. My plan is to be in Dallas this year for media days again, nice. And then we'll see how. The fixtures, like I've got the fixtures here. I'm going through them to see because one of the thing is it's quite an art trying if you've got a 2-week break and your games are on a Saturday. It's quite an art trying to fit as many games into that as you possibly can. So I'll just need to try and work that out because I want to get across to see some football this year.
That's awesome, absolutely awesome. Well, looking forward to seeing you in Dallas in a few months. Everybody, go subscribe. College Chaps Podcast. Just such a cool perspective that you guys have. I'm so grateful that you guys were willing to have me on your show, and hopefully we can do this again sometime, man.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Connor. I appreciate that. Thanks.
All right. Well, jersey contest. I have an Andrew Luck jersey, as you can see right here. We got the official, like, I don't know when they started doing like these fully stitched jerseys. You can see the back. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you look really closely at the back of this jersey, you can see, and I'm swiveling my chair and sitting in a very awkward position for the YouTube audience. You're like, what in the world's kind of doing? You can see the stitching is kind of off a little bit off in the top part of it. And that leads into how I acquired this Andrew Luck jersey. I had a buddy, Chris Stoney, who used to work at SDS, was here when I first got here. Yeah, Stoney. Good dude. Great dude. Stoney had a buddy who worked at Nike. And the first time that I went to Stoney's house here, he had this bin of jerseys. And I was like, how in the world did you acquire all of these jerseys? Like jerseys that he was just not going to touch, not going to do anything with. He's like, my buddy at Nike will send me this jersey if it has anything wrong with it. If it has if it's off by like a stitch this way or that way, he will send me these jerseys, and usually he'll like repay him by like buying him lunch or something like that. So Stoney was like, hey, like what do you want a jersey or anything that you want? And I was like, yeah, I'll like give you money for it. I'm not gonna like be like, hey, get me a bunch of free jerseys. I'm not gonna do that. But he's like, just we'll figure it out. He's like, just buy me lunch or something like that. So I was like, done, easy. And it's like at that time, 2015, fall of 2015, it's like nobody on the Bears right now is really really worth that investment. It's like, let me get an Andrew Luck jersey. Quarterback should be around for a really long time. Should be someone
well
that's
past Connor. You're going to continue not buying Bears jerseys for the foreseeable future.
Seriously, God. I love the jersey. It's great. It's a little bit loose, kind of in this collar area, and at the time, I wondered so much why they did that. And I think that Nike made that choice because of how often football jerseys are worn with hoodies. And so there's a little bit of like a little bit more give. It kind of looks like just a little bit too loose to wear with just like a t-shirt under it. So that's not my favorite thing in the world, but I used to have a tradition. I would wear this jersey when I would go to Indy, and I would wear it so that my father-in-law wouldn't look at me like, why are you wearing, an Indiana shirt or something like that? I don't want to pick you guys up anymore. So I only do that.
Wait, in Indianapolis?
Yeah, because he's a big Purdue guy.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
Yeah, so like, I'm like, if I wear like an Indiana basketball shirt or something like that, then it upsets him a little bit. This is a nice neutral jersey that anybody could get behind. And it's weird because the way that Luck's career ended, like it's strange that it's not one of those cases where a guy fell out of favor with a team or anything like that because of how oddly his retirement went. But there's definitely a period where I felt, I probably don't wear this in Indy for a little bit. It's kind of like a sensitive subject of how quickly his career ended and why he decided to do that. So yeah, if I could go back and do it differently, I probably would have gotten a different jersey for the price of a lunch. I don't know who it would be now that I'm thinking back to who I was in 2015, but I guess there have been worse purchases made, but I thought I would get more use out of this than I actually did.
I love Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck has been one of my favorite players. He almost gives me like Luka vibes in a way. Like I've always loved him. He's always been a little bit. He's not exactly a chunk, but he's got a little bit chubbier of a face. He's not like
a big boy. Yeah.
He's a guy who I feel like drinks a lot of milk. Shout out Candler Cook. Like he's a guy who probably does all the science and everything. I actually started to ask you when the last one for me was because I was going to wear an Andrew Luck jersey. And I think this all kind of dovetails together because now we can just talk about this together. So I have a wildly similar story for an Andrew Luck jersey. And it all relates to him, more or less hanging it up because he had other priorities. And that's why, those jerseys were kind of, they're in a weird space because it's very rare for a quarterback to do what he did, to still be at pretty near the top of his abilities, to where you didn't see him be really mortal. You didn't see him suck, but it just ended. So my Andrew Luck jersey is super important to me because I was going through some stuff at about this time last year and maybe a little bit after. And I had a podcast saved that was Andrew Luck talking to Pablo Torre. Have you ever listened to this podcast?
I haven't. I listened to the Zach Kiefer one that he did for The Athletic. That was really interesting, but I did not listen to the interview with Pablo. Yeah,
so I had it saved from like when he retired, and it just came up in my queue randomly. I was working out, and it went through why he retired. And I remember looking around in my life and being like, man, my job is stressing me out. I feel like I don't have the ability to affect things and fix things that I naturally could, but I'm kind of being, it's like I'm in this weird space where I'm a manager kind of in name only, and I'm not really allowed to weigh in on stuff. And then I felt like in my relationship, I also felt like I was a little bit of I hate to say like prisoner, but I didn't have control. I didn't have freedom. And I remember just listening to this podcast and like just crying, like in my gym. And I never cry. I really don't. Like, you've never seen my cry. Most of my friends have not seen me cry, but I was just in my gym. And I remember listening to Andrew Luck, and it just completely resonated with me, with him just being like, I don't want to freaking do this anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. My life is not fun, and I've done enough to where I don't need to do this. And so I remember sitting down and just going, dude, you could walk away from everything right now. You could literally go move to Montana and never talk to any of these people again. Do you want to do that? And I was like, no. I was like, so if you don't want to do that, you can. So don't sit here and be a prisoner in your own life. Don't sit here and think, I got to go show up and get hit in spring training or in spring practices. I don't have to. I can go walk away. And the way that he explained it, because he's such a smart, unique guy, was just so perfect for me. It was like, I feel the same way in my career. I feel like I had done a lot. We've done a lot. I'm really proud of the work that we've done. I'm really proud of the work that I had done with my day job. And I felt like if this is the end of it here, I'm happy because I've already proved it to myself, and that's all that matters. And so, point being, I went through everything I went through. I locked in. I talked to my boss. I talked to Brittany. One of those situations got better. One got worse. And my buddy that works at EA, funny enough, I'm wearing this shirt that he also got me. And during the time, those jerseys were kind of valueless because who wants an Andrew Luck jersey? And so he's looking around the office. They're kind of doing a little giveaway to get rid of some stuff. And he just mails me this Andrew Luck jersey, like 3 or 4 months after my breakup. And he's like, hey, man, this made me think of you. And I, again, got emotional just thinking about my friends and just like,
that's wild.
Yeah. And I just got emotional thinking about my friends and just like how I called my buddy just kind of like sad. And I was like, dude, I feel like Andrew Luck. I feel like I don't want to be here anymore. And I see it in my closet and I'm just like, it makes me happy because I think to myself at any moment, I could hang this up. I do this every day because I want to. And I have to remind myself of that when things get hard, whenever we're going, whatever it is in my personal life, in my career. It's cool to think, okay, I'm not dependent on this. I have enough money saved up. I can go, if I want to go restart my life and go dig ditches, or if I want to go work in whatever industry, I can just go do it. And Andrew Luck getting out of that mold really made me think about that. So he's a really significant guy to me, long story short.
I've never heard that before. I feel like I've heard a lot of stories about, kind of your like basically like how your thought process, and we text a lot and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I had no idea that you were going through that, and that like listening to someone talk about getting freedom and what that's like is, I mean, that is incredible to hear. I had no idea whatsoever, man. That's wild. The fact that Brady sent you a Luck jersey, because he's not like quite at that place at EA where he's gonna like, constantly give you hookups. Like don't tweet at Will asking for like the new copy of the college football video game. Like, don't do that.
Yeah. And that's why our stories with this jersey are weirdly similar, because it was it was a jersey nobody wanted, but he doesn't care. That's the best part.
Yeah, that's wild.
He doesn't care about the money the NFL's making off of him. He's got his money. He's good. Yeah.
And by the way, for when Will's talking about like, hey, he's like overwhelmed at like his job, he's talking about like his full-time gig. He's not talking about like what he does here with us.
No, and that's night and day better. I feel like I had to talk with my boss, and I told him how I felt, and he agreed. And after that, it all got sunny. And that's why when I'm on here, I'm so happy because we choose the life we lived every day. And seeing Andrew Luck made me realize we don't have to do any of this crap if we don't want to. Really,
you're exactly right. You're exactly right. That's good stuff, man. Those are the types of stories that I would love to be able to tell with what we're going to do with Jersey Stories, and consider that a reminder to email me, COGARA@SaturdayDownSouth.com, COGARA@SaturdayDownSouth.com. I want to be able to hear stories like that and tell stories like that on this show. And I know that a lot of people have very sentimental memories of jerseys and what they mean to them. So would love to be able to get those out to the world. Little housekeeping note. This week, this is the only pod. You're listening to this, just hopefully you have enough that's saved up that can kind of tide you over. We are not having a Friday episode because I am out of town, like I said, in Indy.
The King of Indy, they're calling him, on the streets. That's his town.
I won't go that far. I have never had residency in Indianapolis itself. I've worked in Indy. I've spent plenty of time in Indy. I have long been an Indy stan as a host of big time events, but I don't think I could be considered the king of Indy if I've never lived there. I don't think that's fair.
You pull up in the basketball court set up in the airport, what's your move?
I was never a between the legs guy in a game, so I feel like doing that in that atmosphere wouldn't necessarily be fair.
But do you check in? Do you say, I got, you're wearing your Luck jersey, you're not in business cash? I mean, do you try to get a run in, or you just keep pushing?
I'm pulling up from 3.
Yep.
Top of the key. Give me one shot. If it goes in, it's meant to be. That's a walk-off. If not, I'm putting my head down. I'm keeping it moving. Lauren, the entire time that's happening, is putting her head down and keeping it moving. Claire also probably doing the same.
Lauren's dad just circling in the pickup line while you're just draining threes.
I got hot, man. Sorry.
Look, shoot or shoot. That's a law, all right? Can't break that, especially in Indy. I'm trying to pay all respect, all right?
Exactly. 49 states. It's just basketball. That's what they say. That is what they say. All right. Leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch every episode of the Started Down South podcast. Follow us on the app formerly known as Twitter, at the STS Pod, at Sat Down South, at CJ O'Gara, at Go So Hard. Thanks, guys. Talk soon.